Hello, I'm Elaine Slatter, the podcast host of the Fabulous Fempreneurship Show. In this special series, we're interviewing the authors of an exciting new book, 8 Qualities of Great Leadership, the critical elements for now and future success, to get their in-depth thoughts on the chapter that they've written. And so today's guest, I'd like to welcome Dancho to our show, Dancho Dimkov, founder and CEO of B2B Solutions, and the author of the chapter on designing your B2B growth strategy. So welcome to our show, Dancho.
Thank you very much, Elaine, for having me. And congratulations on getting my name right, because usually I get Dan, Danko, and different variations, but you pronounce it perfectly.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that worked out okay. So before we get started, Dancho, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and in terms of the background, your background in education and experience? We'd really appreciate that.
Sure. I mean, Elaine, there is usually a longer version and a shorter version of the thing. For the longer version, I need at least a beer or something, because that could take a while. But when it comes to first academic perspective, is that I have a bachelor in economics. I've always been fascinated by entrepreneurship, startups, and the startup ecosystem. So I continued my Master of Science in Entrepreneurship. So I really dig into the theory of how startups works and funding and everything. And from there, I continue with the executive MBA to understand a bit corporation, how they behave in the business world, and ended up in the consultancy ecosystem. So the last thing I did was the CMC certification, which is the Certified Management Consultant. And it really helps. I mean, there is always a struggle between, are you more academic person or are you more business person? And if you ask me, you have to know the academy and the methodological academic way of thinking that you can apply to your business in order to grow. And I'm the life example of it, because I've started a lot of enterprises, a lot of businesses, quite a lot of failed, actually, to be honest, but that's how we learn along the way. So I had the opportunity to start a marketing agency at 21. It lasted for 1 year. Actually, I got a job, so I had to close that down. Then I continue in a software development company. Really exciting experience, but there's no way I could communicate with software developers because they really have a different frequency of conversating. And from there, I actually started my own business, a B2B consultancy, B2B Solutions. And from there, it started growing. I mean, this is like 7 years ago, and starting it as a consultancy to help entrepreneurs and startups. So when I saw the name of your podcast, Elaine, I said, wow, this will be a perfect, at least to share my experience and my thoughts. And once we've started B2B Solutions, it quickly grew because I was offering what I already know. We worked with business plans, with market research, with lead generation, and it helps when you know Ansoff matrix, I don't know, 4P from Porter, 5 force analysis, and those kind of academic methods that you can easily apply into the business world. And fast forward, we've realized that as a consultant, it's really hard to get paid by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are really exciting target group to work, especially at the early stage where you can see the sparks in their eyes. So they're like, yes, we're going to conquer the world. We have a great idea. And then when you start talking with them, we're like, well, in the first year, we anticipate 12 million in revenue. And then in the second year, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is your first business. There's no way you could actually do that. So I understand that they have huge expectations when they start business.
Yes.
And it is. I mean, I saw that you're also working with entrepreneurs and businesses, and usually people are overexcited very quickly. But then within the first few weeks or few months in the business, they really get demotivated. It's like, but this requires a lot of sweat and effort and long hours. And that's how people start businesses. And that's point we've realized that as much as we wanted to help entrepreneurs and startups, we also have to help mid companies who are already established and they have a marketing department, a sales department, and then you can come to them and try to help them to grow them. The funny part with the entrepreneurs is they need to do everything. They need to do accounting, they need to do finance and marketing and sales. So usually they don't have one problem, they have multiple problems, and it's really noble to work and try to help them. However, with the SMEs, I've realized that with the small and medium businesses is that first is they have already the product, they already have the market, and they need help in growing their businesses. And this is, Elaine, where we found our core reason of existence by focusing on service providers, high ticket service providers to grow. We focused our whole company in how we can focus on that small niche and that we can do it really, really good. Nowadays, we're like 27 people full-time in-house. We're all based in Macedonia, in the Skopje, in the capital. And we work with high-ticket service providers in three main segments. We work a lot with consultants, because when it comes to growth with consultants, is usually, well, if they get access to tenders, to speaking opportunities or other things, they could charge a lot of money. And it is the same with the second target audience, with marketing agencies, where they have longer term projects. And the third is the tech world. I mean, nowadays, IT, AI, especially now with the AI, there are a lot of companies working in that field. I think I started sharing the long version of the story, but to summarize it in that case, Elaine, we're doing really great things in the B2B world. And we've started building academies on top of it, right? Even last year, I wrote a book on B2B lead generation. The name is Sweet Leads, and how you can fill your calendar with qualified high-value B2B meetings. And on the side, as a consultant, I still work with entrepreneurs and startups, but also I work now a lot with sales companies that need help in how to improve their sales. And this is how the story came for me to write the chapter about strategies for growth and how to set up your company to ensure that you're going to achieve the growth.
Yeah, that's what we'd love to explore with you, the right way to build a solid B2B growth strategy. So could you break that down for our listeners?
Of course. I mean, when it comes to growth, everybody are like, just put a lot of hours in it and there you go, you grow. And sometimes it works. I mean, sometimes by luck, you go to the casino, you put everything on the red. Sometimes it works. But in most cases, people are disappointing, and like, Facebook does not work for me, or email does not work for me, or cold calling, or SEO. And I think that here is the problem why people are not focusing on the planning stage rather than just jumping into the execution. And there is a lot of theory on how you can grow different companies, but when you start thinking about, in B2B, we worked with more than 500 companies so far. So we have a really big portfolio of working with different companies. And at the end of the day, there are few options how you can grow your business. The harder part is to choose which option is the best for your business. But other than that, there was a really smart guy. His name was, it was Igor Ansov. He's a Russian American, and he's an applied mathematician and a business manager. And he created a really nice matrix. And the matrix is like, there are 4 ways how you can grow your business. You can either create a new product and offer it to your market. So like, okay, this is something new that I can offer so we can get more money. Or the existing product that you can have, you can say, well, this worked in Canada, maybe the same product, I can sell it in the US. So instead of building a new product, you're taking the existing product into new markets. The third option is that you can keep fighting with the competition on the same product, on the same market, and then you're trying for different market shares. This is really noticeable when it comes to mobile operators, because in Canada, the target is limited. That's the whole market. So different mobile operators are fighting with different marketing promotion to capture a bigger market share. And the last option, the diversification, is just when you're saying, you know what, I'm just going to a new market with a new product and I'm trying to diversify my risks. So if something works and the other doesn't, I still have to balance between these things. And this was, Elaine, 1950s or 1960s when the Ansov matrix was created. So that's like 60, 70 years ago. And I find it fascinating why people are not using it. And that's why I told you I somehow connect the academic world with the applied business. So when it comes to the strategies for growth, we have managed to divide it into few very simple sections. The first part is that on the strategy level, you need to decide on the growth direction. Are you building a new product, or are you entering new market, or diversifying, or fighting? And that's the strategy level. And then on the second level is, once you've decided, you need the tactics, you need a market research. Whichever option you decide, you need to understand better either what are the product needs, or the market needs, or the new market. And from there, you can start planning on how to do the execution. As a product owner, as a business owner, yes, you need marketing and sales. There are a lot of gurus that says you don't need marketing, you can just do sales. And there are a lot of people saying you don't need sales, you can just do marketing. If it was that, then corporation wouldn't have both departments. So making the right balance, the right mix between the marketing, the inbound activities, and the sales, the outbound activities, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I do think that in some corporations, there's a dysfunction between the marketing and the sales departments, because often they don't communicate that well, and they don't have the same end in mind. And therefore, the messages get all jumbled up, and the results don't meet their expectations. So I really do believe that those two departments need to work together on a combined and on a strategy that works both for the marketing of it and the sales of it, and that you're not giving out mixed messages either from the marketing side or the sales side. It has to be crystal clear.
And it's interesting, Elaine, history repeats itself, because in management history, at the beginning, it was one department, marketing and sales department. But as it got more complicated, it got divided. And then in the organizational behavior, now we see the importance of either cross-department collaboration or matrix organizational structure, in order to make sure that marketing and sales are talking the same language, especially when it comes to reaching out to the end consumer, because the end consumer doesn't even need to know whether it's a marketing or sales, because they're perceiving the company at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that whole Ansoff matrix. I definitely used that in my corporate life, and it was a game changer, really, because it helps you focus on what you're going to do, so that you're not all over the place, because you can't be everything to all people.
Exactly. And I think that here entrepreneurs usually mix it. They're so excited. It's like, I have an idea to start a consultancy, where on top of consultancy, I can do trainings. On top of that, I can do also the execution, but I can also do a new product, and I can actually share my experience to other countries. And then they're spreading themselves too thin, not being able to do any positive impact on any of the fields. And actually, that's the main reason why usually startups fails. I mean, we are ambitious as an entrepreneurs. We're hungry for growth. Like, I'm gonna conquer the world in the next year or two. And unfortunately, unless you're a millionaire or you're really backed with some good investors, you cannot do it. I mean, even Facebook, even the big companies, they are starting usually the story in a garage, where, every entrepreneur starts with a garage. And at some point, they're scaling, getting funding, scaling in different countries, then scaling in different products. And even then, it's coordinated approach with marketing and sales, rather than let's scale at the same time in multiple countries with multiple products and everything.
And sometimes the founders of a company, when they start to get traction and get a little bit bigger, they don't actually make really good CEOs, because that's really not their strength. So the smart founders know when it's time to hire the right CEO to move the company forward. And maybe they go found a different kind of business. Do you find that?
Well, of course, I can give you example from B2B solution from my company. I'm now in the process to onboarding a CEO, because the mindset of an entrepreneur is growth, exploring new opportunities, capturing new challenges, while the CEO is more operational, how to maintain the stability. And it is always a struggle, because as an entrepreneur, I want to add new stuff. I mean, it's in my nature. While the CEO likes stability. It's like, we don't need to add new services. Let's stabilize these, because people are moving, people are changing. Let's keep it stable. While the entrepreneurs are usually more proactive. We actually genuinely we see opportunity on the market, or we see a problem that we know how to solve it. And this is probably, you need a balanced life, especially in my case. we do the business with my wife, and that really helps because I'm more the front end guy, talking, podcasting, doing video interviews and everything. Well, my wife is the more stable one. Finance, administration, a legal part. So she keeps the money. I just do the talking at the end of the day.
So she's your operations manager for sure.
Well, many times when we talk with clients, we're like, well, what's the next steps? And I was like, well, I finished my sales talk. Now I need to connect you with my wife. She's going to give you the contract, the invoice, so we can actually get the
Yeah,
ball up and running.
exactly. So what would you say the biggest challenges and issues are for the founder when, when they want to do B2B growth? I know we've touched on a few, but are there any more challenges, issues that the founder faces?
Of course, Elaine, there are so many things when it comes to growth. And I think that the biggest problem is resources. Like it or not, the biggest challenge is that, COVID hit. A lot of people were forgetting about growth. They were focused on surviving.
Yeah.
And it was funny, in B2B, we have growth strategies, and then we just crossed the growth and rename it survival strategies. Because like it or not, you still need to do the same activities just to survive. And many of the companies got scared during the COVID that, well, now it's a risky period. We don't do any marketing/sales activities. We're just going to wait this out. And then time passed and COVID stayed for a bit longer than expected. And that hurted a lot of businesses. And in our case, that growth was replaced with survival strategies. And like it or not, you need to keep growing just to stay alive rather than you need to keep growing in order to grow your business.
Yeah.
So whenever it comes to resources, the biggest challenge is figuring out which growth direction is best for your business. Everybody, it's an urge to try, but I can actually create a new product and I can try a few different countries. Even if you decide to go on a different countries or different markets, you still need to think which market is lowest hanging fruit, rather than let's enter 20 different countries. Or it doesn't even need to be different geographies. It can be in the same geography in Canada, but just different market segments.
Yeah.
Again, you will spread yourself too thin. And I've seen this over and over, where people are driven to do a lot at the same time. And then, we entrepreneurs complain we work a lot, 18, 20 hours per day, and there's still things that needs to be done. And yes, it is hard, but the focus that you should get from the growth strategy is tell you, well, if I need to work, at least to work on the things that most matter and the things that gives the biggest impact.
Yeah, so work smartly.
Yes, well, Pareto law was that 20% of the effort gives the 80% of the results. So the other 80% of the effort should either be outsourced or delegate or someone else that needs to do that, not the owner. And as we worked with quite a lot of owners, Elaine, I oftentimes seems to see the owners getting how it is called the analysis paralysis term. It's like when you have too many options and then you get blocked and then you don't know which route to take, but should I take this or no, but maybe I should take this or maybe I should take this. And I've seen that so many times that because of waiting for too long to make a decision, even if it's a hard decision, during COVID, owners had to fire a lot of employees, but delaying the decision, but what if this, but what if that, hurt the company a lot.
Yeah.
So I've seen that with many entrepreneurs, especially the inexperienced one, is that, well, I'm afraid to make a decision. And by being afraid, you're just delaying it. And at some point, the competition is always here that's going to take over.
Yeah. So when leaders are facing those kind of issues, what is your suggestion? Like if you got analysis paralysis, what's the best way to overcome that?
In my case, it was one example that I can share, Elaine, is that when I was supposed to decide to start the business, I was working as a freelancer, and should we open a company because it was enough work for me? I already had enough work for my wife, and we were like, we need to start a business and hire some people in order to keep growing it. But what if we succeed? But how much money it's gonna take us? But what if it doesn't succeed? And what if analysis can take you 6 months from your life? But at the end of the day, my suggestion is that something really helped me that I wanted to share here is that a simple question: what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
And with the business, when we decided to start, it's a simple thing, but for us, it was like, okay, let's start the business, give it 3 months and see what it happens, rather than as I get older, I will still be, I should have opened that company when I wanted to. No regrets. And we just put up a spreadsheet. It's like 3 months. How much could it cost in 3 months? It's like
Right.
we can get a few interns in order to help us. We can buy some secondhand furniture. We can rent an apartment and make it an office. So it was several €1,000. And I was like, what's the worst case scenario here? He's like, well, we will try, it will fail, and we will close, and that's it. Now, like,
Mhm.
well, I'm comfortable with additional 10K in credit, but having the fulfillment that I've tried. And when you realize that the worst case scenario is not that bad scenario, I mean, we're not into business where you need to invest several millions and then to realize if it
Mhm.
works or not. But with less than €10,000, we said, well, if that's the worst case, then what's the best case? Well, the best case is we get a lot of clients, we hire even more people, and we get a lot of money out of the business. And I was like, well, it's never going to be the worst or the best. It's somewhere in between. But as long as I'm comfortable with the worst case scenario, everything else is better. So when we entered the business, it's like, okay, we're going to lose this 10K, whatever happens, but at least I'm going to try so I wouldn't regret later, I should have opened that company. And with that simple question, what's the worst case scenario? And since I relived it in my head, I was actually then comfortable. I was like, I don't care, even if it doesn't work in these 3 months, I'm going to get a new job. I'm going to start getting new money. I'm going to return that loan, and that's it. And then everything that is more than that, you're happy already, because it's already beyond the worst case scenario. So with the analysis paralysis, you can keep thinking, but at the end, you have to ask some questions to yourself personally to get to action. So with me, it was really, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? And if you're comfortable with it and you can mitigate that risk, then just go for it.
Yeah, I really like that analogy, Dancho, because you set kind of a limit on the amount of risk that you were comfortable with, and then set the parameter of the timing. And therefore, it wasn't like an endless sum of money that you were, willing to just keep on losing, and an endless amount of time to work it out. You set yourself a goal. And as you said, even if you don't quite meet that goal, as long as you're seeing progress from that decision,
Yes.
then you're a winner, because then you can adjust going forward. So I love that analogy.
Yeah, and Elaine, some people are averse to risk. So as an entrepreneur, we are more prone to risks. But I don't mix risk and entrepreneurs unless it's calculated risks.
Yeah.
Because the another analogy is that you can go to the casino, put everything on red, and why wait for 3 months? You'll either double your revenue and go home happy, or you lose everything and that's it. Why wait for 3 months?
Yeah.
But that's not a calculated risk, because then it's a 50% chance it can either go black or it's 49. But anyway, that's a bad risk. Or when people go to betting, in sporting, when they bet that this team, there is some knowledge there, because whose team is playing against whose team, and then you have some market insights. They've won and they've lost in the history. But in business, we have to make risks, otherwise you cannot grow. And the risk is in the growth strategy is that you're committing to a growth direction, and you put resources and time, and you're hoping that it will work. And instead of hoping, with the growth framework that I've put it into the chapter, is like, well, how can we reduce the risk and increase the calculations in the decision, so it would minimize the impact of making a wrong decision. So if from 10 mistakes, 9 can be captured in the planning stage and just 1 can be experienced, why don't they capture those 9 rather than do all the 10 mistakes on the field? So that's, with me, a calculated risk, which the more calculations you add, the more comfortable you are into the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your chapter, you mentioned the importance of research before jumping into a growth strategy. And can you explain how you helped a client who thought they wanted to introduce an espresso compatible pods, and what your research showed that he should do instead?
Sure. I mean, whenever we talked about the Ansoff, everybody have a gut feeling which direction they should take. But without a market research, it's a gut feeling. And that's gambling in my case, because it's not a calculated risk, as we just discussed. And when it comes to the market research, it cannot make a decision for you. As a business owner, you make the decisions, the easier one, the hard one, but you're making the decision.
Yeah.
The market research can just support your decisioning with facts, with data, with insights, with market trends, with industry trends, making your decision a bit easier, but still it's a risky one. And the example that you mentioned is that we had a client from the UK, and he was like, you know what, I want to enter into he had multiple businesses, and he wanted to diversify. I see an opportunity, Nespresso compatible pots. I want to enter into those because yes, you can find the pots in China, you can find some coffee in Italy, you can produce them and you can start selling them online. My goal was that, okay, that could work, but how do you know it will work? I mean, what are the risks associated? What is the competition doing in the Nespresso? I have zero knowledge in Nespresso compatible cups. So I was like, have you checked out the market needs? No. Have you checked out what the competition is doing in that area? No. Have you checked what are the industry trends there? No. And I was like, well, how are you doing a growth strategy where you're going into the dark? Go to the casino, try the red one, at least you have a faster response. Seriously, Elaine. And we said, well, let's do a market research. Let's try to understand what is going into the compatible market. And as we were doing the research, there were so many competitors, especially competitors from third world countries or developing countries, that they could offer really, really low, cheap products. And the competition was really fierce. But what gave us the research is that as we were looking at the competitors, we found a gap on the market. The gap was that everybody are fighting who's going to create a cheaper compatible pads, or who's going to make it in larger volume, so economy of scale and being price sensitive. But then on the other hand, nobody was fighting on the more expensive, because the assumption was that, well, the original cups are most expensive and everything else is people are looking for cheaper and cheaper options. We've tested this argument and we found some really exciting examples, is that nobody is going after the most luxury, most expensive pots. And by most expensive, I'm talking about Hawaii Kona, Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, Wild Coffee Luwak. These are like 5,000, 10,000 euros per kilo. So ultra luxury coffees. And since you're doing ultra luxury, we had to find the best pots. Then we had to find the best coffee in Italy, and then the best roasting house. And then we had to source all the coffees from Indonesia and different countries, and then create the most luxury packaging. But then the target audience was not people that want to have cheap coffee at home, but it's in airplanes where people in the business class that they want to drink luxury coffee, in Michelin star restaurants where the coffee is a culture. It's not just having coffee. And this is where the research helped. It gives us a gap on the market. And then the research is an iteration, Elaine, because we said, well, if we're going after the most luxury coffee, which are the most luxury ones? I was like, I have no idea. It's another research that we need to do in order to identify the top 5 most expensive, highest quality coffees. And the reason why I'm sharing this is that if the client continued with that growth direction of diversification without the research, he would have been outbid by the competition, because he didn't have a unique selling proposition. Cheaper coffee, it's always going to be someone's going to offer it cheaper. But when it comes to the ultra luxury, most luxury coffee, there is not that much, and there is not a lot of coffee when it comes to Jamaican Blue Mountain. It's really limited kilos of coffee that is being produced annually, exclusively in Jamaica. So with that business model, he changed it, he differentiated, and he got a really great results from it.
Yeah, I can understand that, how important that research is. And that's the role of the leader, is to make sure that they do it right, like get the research done and not just go off the top of their heads. And then to make a decision, you know, the leader has to make a decision on the direction once they have all the research, right?
Yes. And while we're talking still on the market research, I wanted to add, Market research, usually we recommend in the second on the tactics, because one case is that with the analysis paralysis, people don't know which growth direction to take, whether to bring the new product or the new market or diversify or penetrate. And market research could also help here. Well, you can research what are the cost benefit analysis of adding a new product to the existing, or doing a market research, or how much it will cost to enter into new markets, or even do some research from 20 countries, which one is the most attractive for your product. So on one level, a market research can help you decide which of the Ansoff matrix is best growth strategy. And when you decide which one you want to pursue, a market research is mandatory. It's like a compulsory. And to give you the background here is that, let's just say you want to introduce a new product in the same country, in Canada. Well, you need to better understand your market. What are their additional needs? So you are currently having a portfolio of clients. You are satisfying their needs, but you cannot satisfy all of their needs. So you need some customer feedback, what they currently need in addition. What is the upsell? What is the downsell? What additional products that you can introduce to them that you can offer to the same market? Well, without a market research, there's no way how you can get that. When you want to have the same product or just enter into new countries, well, guess what? Without the market research, you don't know what's the culture there, especially US, North America compared to Europe. There is huge cultural difference. And what are their preferences? Maybe they want some features that you don't have, or maybe they hate some of your features, and in US, in Canada is selling well, but in Europe it won't pass. So a market research should help you as you're entering new markets to understand the market needs, but also look at the competitors. You are fighting for a market share in a new market, so you have to understand what are the strategies.
And you also have to look at regulations of different countries for the product that you want to introduce into that market, because there again, between Europe and North America, there are different regulations for different kinds of products. And you could get it all prepared, you know, the packaging and everything done, and then realize that you can't comply to the country where you're trying to enter. So that's where research comes in again.
And on top of it, the regulation can be on the level of the industry or the vertical, but also on the government level. For example, GDPR is now a bit more strict in Europe. So you have to be aware of that if you're bringing products from USA into Europe, or when you try to promote it to EU consumers. And the third part was when you're trying to increase your market share, it means that you're fighting for the market share of your competitors. So really you need a market research, and we recommend the feature comparison matrix as a framework, where you're like, well, here is me, this is all our goods and features, and here is a list of our 5 to 10 competitors. Let's compare them based on the general features that consumers want. And the magic that happens here, Elaine, is that in many cases, you'll figure out that there is a feature that everybody of your competitors have it except from you. And that could be a problem, because maybe customers already expect when they're switching from competitors to you that you already have that feature, so you need to work on adding it. But even the bigger miracle is that as you're comparing, you'll find a feature that only you have it and no one else has it. And that's the unique selling point. And then you put a lot of effort on marketing and a lot of effort in sales, because you have that unique feature that the competitors don't have. But without a market research, how would you know? It's more like shoot in the dark, where it might work, it might not. But just by comparing yourself with the competitors, you will find the unique angle, and then you can put a lot of resources in marketing and sales in that unique angle.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts on that, Dancho. So let's talk now about inbound and outbound strategies for growth. Could you tell us a little bit more about those two areas?
Sure. Well, the framework works that once you decide on the growth direction with the Ansoff matrix that will help you, new product, new market, and then you're going to get yourself filled with insights on the market research in regards to market, competition, industries, regulations, you would be able to make the right decisions, more comfortable, more calculated risks. And when it comes to marketing and sales, it's really inbound and outbound. They are in most cases synonyms, because inbound means that how can you attract people toward you, and that is usually marketing. And the outbound is usually how you can proactively reach out to potential prospect, which is usually sales. So when we're talking about marketing and sales, figuring out the right mix between those two is always a headache. It's always a headache because depending on your business, depending on your industry, and depending on your strategy, you need to balance and fine tune the right amount and on which channel. So when we're talking about marketing, in most of the cases, companies have limited options, because you can create content, so you can start attracting people towards you by creating blog posts, video interviews, podcasting, social media posting, and other stuff. On the long term, you're building the SEO, so companies would find it easier to find about you, about your business, and start being attracted to you. You can start using paid traffic as a marketing activity, Facebook ads, Google ads, but that is also a strategy to reach out to a cold prospect and start bringing them toward your content. We make the reference of like a shop, where if you have a physical shop, you need some content like bookshelf, so people will start knowing that you're out there. And you also need to talk on a radio show, in the local radio, put some leaflets out of the door, so people will be aware about your existence. I really like marketing, but marketing is usually mid to long term strategy. You cannot, Elaine, just write a blog post and expect tomorrow 10 clients to line up in front of your shop just because you wrote a blog. It takes some time. It takes some time for the SEO to kick in. It takes some time for people to get to know. So as an entrepreneur,
and to trust you,
to trust you, build that relationship and trust. And as an entrepreneur, we're kind of impatient. It's not just you just sit now in the office and wait for the phone to ring, hoping that someone will come. So here comes the sales. Well, if you know who are you targeting by the market research, you have identified already your target audience, you can start pick up the phone and start calling people. It can be a cold calling, it can be email outreach, it can be LinkedIn outreach, where instead of waiting for the phone to ring, you're proactively reaching out to your target audience and start the relationship building. I'm not really fan of prospecting in terms of sales, because most of the people are aligning it with spamming. The goal is not to spam a lot of people with, I don't care who you are or what you do, let me tell you about my product and why it's really good. I'm talking more about LinkedIn email as a prospecting tool to start building relationship with your potential clients.
I totally agree.
And especially in the mid to high level services, even enterprise level, you cannot just phone the CEO of an insurance company as, hi, would you like to buy our services? We have a software or something. You need to start building that relationship, chit-chatting with them, going on an event where we'll both meet up. It takes some time and nurturing, but at least while you're waiting for the phone to ring, you're proactively building your network. And there was a lot, they were saying something, your network is your net worth, because the more people you have in your network, the more easier it becomes the sales. Well, Elaine, unfortunately, nowadays with the younger population, people are impatient. They just like, but if I sent an email campaign with 10,000 emails and with a success of 0.001, I still get some clients. And I'm like, yeah, but you're kind of annoying 99.999% of the rest of the target audience. And you burn those bridges because they'll never want to hear from you again.
That's exactly right.
And this is where we believe that the right balance is like, you know, even when you start reaching out to a potential client, there's going to be, who is this Dancho from B2B? Let me check out their website. Let me check out their content. What blogs has he made? He has his own book. So that's why the alignment between marketing and sales is critical, because if you're purely marketing, then you have a very nice website, a lot of content, but nobody is coming to you. So how would they know how great you are? Or if you're just 100% sales and you're just reaching out and they're like, let me check out Dancho or B2B, and they see there's no website at all, or there is just a yellow page note, it discredits the credibility of the outreach. So the right mix of marketing and sales is actually the perfect strategy for growth. And in order, now I'm just going to reverse engineering as a summary, in order to know what is the right mix of marketing and sales, well, guess what? You need to understand your ideal target audience. And if you want to understand your target audience, well, actually you need a market research. And in order to do the market research, you really need to know which growth direction are you picking first, so actually you can do the rest of the steps. That was my summary, and I find it interesting because some people are trying to just jump the strategy. It's like, well, I don't need the strategy, I can just do Facebook ads. And I'm like, okay, so you've decided on inbound. What is the target audience? Well, I don't know. Well, how about Facebook compared to LinkedIn? Which channel is better? And they still don't know, and it gives me an idea that they don't understand the ideal target, so they haven't done the research, so they don't know which strategy for growth they're pursuing.
Yeah, very, very perceptive there. I totally agree with you. So based on your extensive experience working with, over 500 companies, are there any additional tips you can share with our audience about designing your B2B growth strategy? What would you suggest?
Sure. Well, we have the agile approach nowadays, is that research is good, but at some point you need to take actions. And sometimes it's better to research, try, fail, do some additional research, try, fail, and then get it right, rather than spending 6 to 12 months on researching the right solution, and then you try it and you just realize it's not the one. Because every time you fail, you have a feedback from the market.
Yeah,
Failing
get the
means that
feedback.
this is not something that we are interested in. And there's no way our research can help you in understanding that, unless it's a primary research with a focus group and interviews. But at the end of the day, many times we're saying, when we're looking at the research, I'm not looking about the general population. For me, I try to understand people that are swiping their credit cards, because the buyer is the one that I need to understand what they need and how they need. So whenever you're building a growth strategy, my recommendation is really try the first one, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, move on the next one, try to see, because by getting the feedback, you're growing as a person, but also as a company. Because if 20 people are told you, I'm not going to buy your product because of X, there you go, that's your feedback, go and fix X. So then you go back to the previous 20 people and think, you know what, we're listening to you, and we've solved that problem, and now we have an updated proposal. And you know how appreciated and valued I would feel if I give a negative feedback to a company and then they come back to me that they've solved it. I'm becoming a client at the end of the day.
Yeah, they've acknowledged that you're an important part of their growth by getting that by when you give feedback, even though the feedback might be negative, everybody appreciates being heard.
Yes, and Elaine, co-creation is always, especially in the service industry, co-creation is like, you know what, we've started as a business consultant working with entrepreneurs. Based on the feedback, we saw that, well, they need help a lot with sales. So we specialized in sales, but then they said, well, we actually need LinkedIn outreach. So we've added that. But as we started working with our clients, they said, well, you know what, we also need some content creation. So we've created a content agency. And as our sales team were talking to our target audience, some of them were saying, we cannot afford an agency. Is there a way how we can learn it on our own? So that's why I wrote the book so people can read it and do it themselves. And we also create a B2B prospecting academy with a lot of online videos and templates and everything. So then we can serve that market as well. But if you asked me 7 years ago whether we would be in the B2B marketing and sales, I would say no. I was really into the management consulting, and I was going even academically into the management consulting, and I was fascinated about working with entrepreneurs, inventing new products, being at the latest trends of what's going on. And just because of listening to the customers, it evolved us into growing not in the direction that I wanted, but in the direction that the market has responded. That's the end goal of any business, to grow the business, not just because of the owner wanted to have his ego right, but it's more because of the feedback that you're getting from the market.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you very much, Dancho, for a great interview. So can you tell us a little bit about your website, bizbsolutions.com?
Sure. Elaine, I've mentioned it several times what we do. I'll try to just summarize it on what we do as an agency now. We are into the B2B appointment settings. We work exclusively with high-ticket service providers, so consultancies, marketing agencies, tech world, and we have the capacity to cover the whole spectrum of B2B sales, from working with you on the growth strategy and what's the right direction with the market research and defining the ideal client profile. We have copywriters, business analysts to create profiles, to create conversation starters. We don't even call them email sequences or LinkedIn sequences, but conversation starters to engage into that nurturing process. And then we have even the team to handle responses on your behalf, where as people are responding to the campaign, some are saying, yes, thank you very much, we like it, or some are saying, no, thank you. But the majority are in between, where they just really want to genuine one-on-one conversation, up to the appointment setting. So as an agency, we cover all aspects, even building a database of prospects, up to the stage when appointment is setting for our client. We didn't went the step beyond, because that should be a second agency that we should build in future, like closers and selling. But at this stage, our goal is that if a client knows what's their growth strategy, we can help them with the execution, and also with the consultancy. We can even help the clients that are not sure which growth direction or needs help with the market research. We are helping in that. And we're based in Skopje, Macedonia. So if any of the listeners are coming by through the Balkans in Europe and wants to see the fantastic Macedonia, and I'm not sugarcoating it, we don't have sea, but the mountain views are really nice. I would invite them so I can actually show them over coffee or beer in more details on what we do at B2B.
Well, thank you, Dancho, for sharing with us. And thank you, all the business owners in our audience, for joining us for this amazing presentation about designing your B2B growth strategy. So again, I am Elaine Slatter, and thanks for joining us on the Fabulous Fempreneurship Show. And I'd like to invite you to check out the B2B Solutions website and learn more about the dynamic Dancho Dimkov. So I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Elaine, very much for inviting me to the show. And I really hope that at least with some of the insight I could share, it would help fellow entrepreneurs in designing and growing their businesses.
Yes, I'm sure it will. And thank you so much, Dancho.